In this video today, I'm just going to share some of my quick, easy, favorite tips for using stations in Spanish class. I love stations because they're a great way to get a bunch of different practice activities all done in one class period. Fantastic for review day, fantastic for making sure, speaking, writing, reading, listening are all happening in your class period that particular day, or maybe you just need something that's a little hands-off from you and a lot of independent work from them. These are some of my favorite tips for making sure stations run smoothly. Hey, it's Ashley, aka Señorita Spanish, where I provide easy-to-use resources to save you time, energy, reduce your stress levels, and your workload while you're lesson planning. If you're new here, I just want to make sure you know that links to everything that I mentioned will be below in the description box of this video. Do you ever do stations with your classes? Comment below yes or no and let me know, do you use stations or centers, some people call them centers, with your classes? Comment below and let me know. Now, I love doing stations in my Spanish class. I find a station is a really good way to do a mix of fun different activities without it taking up all of your class time. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on how I like to do stations and some tips to help you get them to run smoothly in your classes. Stations are one of my favorite things to do in class, and I would usually try to incorporate them like once a chapter or every other chapter. They're a great tool to use, they keep students moving, and you get to do a bunch of different activities all in a short amount of time. However, if you're not careful, stations can easily become just this nightmare of things to organize. So let's talk about some tips to make sure they run smoothly. Here are some of the things I've learned over the past few years that help me manage stations and just make it all not a logistical nightmare. First tip is one sheet station tracking. And what I mean by this is before I used to set up station 1 and station 2 and station 3 and station 4 and 5 and whatever, how many stations, and each station had the papers or the activities or the printables and the handouts that they needed at every single one of those stations. And I found my students were carrying all of these different things from station to station. It's just a mess and it's a lot for the students to keep track of. So now I either print the handouts double-sided, or I just make this cute little packet that they just bring from station to station. They don't work ahead because they need the materials that are at the stations that are the class set, but that way they don't have to be collecting all of these papers as they go. Second is to double loop your stations. This is a game changer, seriously, and let me explain what I mean. One of the things that I always used to get hung up on about stations is in order to have a small enough sized group at each station, I would need 7 or 8 stations in order to be able to split up my class and not have 6 kids at a station, which in my opinion is too many. They get off task and they distract each other. I like to have 3 or 4 kids at a station, but in order to do that, I needed 8 groups, which is a lot of stations to come up with. Double loop your stations. You only need 4, and then you have station 1, 2, 3, 4 over there on that side of the room in blue or white or whatever color you want to color code them. And then over here on that side of the room, you have station 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, there's 2 sets of the same stations running at the same time. Game changer. So just to try and explain that a little bit better, I have 4 stations on this side of the room, 4 stations on that side of the room, and then each side of the room has 4 groups of kids. This group of kids is going to do station 1, 2, 3, 4. This group of kids is going to do station 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything is just duplicated. This way, this half of the room and this half of the room are going to get the same activities, but I only had to plan 4 activities instead of 8 activities. So much easier. I do like to color code them, and that just helps keep this student from accidentally showing up in station 3 over here when they belong on this half of the room. So this half of the room is white and this half of the room is blue. Whatever color paper I can find down in the copy room, that's how I designate group colors. P.S. Doing 4 stations allows you to designate each of the stations as speaking, reading, writing, and listening, which is kind of nice as you're lesson planning. Plus, doing 4 stations instead of 8 stations allows for this to be a single day event rather than, a multi-day circus, as everybody needs a lot longer to get through all 8 stations rather than just 4 stations in a 50-minute class period. I really like double looping stations. Can you tell? I really like it. Try it if you haven't yet. Next tip to help your stations run smoothly are having objective sheets at the stations. Each station has a sheet with the objective, the goals, the technology that they need, and the directions for the activity itself. Very first job when they get to a new station is for one person to read that sheet out loud so the whole group knows the expectations and what they're doing at that particular station. I try to write the goal as clearly as possible so they understand what is the point of the activity that they are working on at that station for that chunk of the class period. The technology guide makes expectations crystal clear. If they're supposed to have their computer out, it's there. If they're not supposed to have their computer out, I can easily see, hey, station 3, you don't need that. So that really just helps make sure everybody is on the same page. And timing. I usually like my stations to last 7 to 8 minutes long. This is enough time for us to do our usual start of class routine, to do all 4 stations, and to leave a little bit of time at the end of class for them to finish any of the stations that they might not have finished in that rotation, right? I do my best to make sure that they're all the same length, but sometimes one student needs a little bit longer at one of those stations, so building in that extra time at the end of class really helps. Do you have any tips about stations that you use in your own classroom to help make them run more smoothly? I'd love to hear about it. Comment below and let me know what your favorite tip for helping organize stations and use them in a clean, neat, organized fashion in your classroom, okay? Comment below and let me know. Please remember to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, click subscribe, and ring that bell so you get notified of new content that I create for you in the future. I'll see you in the next one.